Ride Kamens is the brand new Racing Sim mobile game addition to the Kamen Rider franchise, featuring an entirely original cast, story, and universe. The development team behind it, though, are no strangers to the world of Kamen Rider. With the main story written by Yuya Takahashi, the same writer responsible for fan-favorite series such as Geats, 01, and X-Aid, and a producer in the form of Naomi Takabe, who contributed to the production of Gaim and O's, the essence of Ride Kamens is a fresh take on Kamen Rider aiming to gather new fans. You may also recognize the developers Liber Entertainment for their previously similar racing simulation game A3 and idle rhythm game Aichu. Character designer Hiroko Utsumi is also the well-known director for Free, Skate the Infinity, and Banana Fish, leaving us with a surprisingly star-studded team for a mobile gacha game. The game itself is a josei muke, meaning it is mainly targeted toward a female audience due to the majority male cast, but there is no explicit romance aspect, allowing all fans of Kamen Rider to enjoy the game. With 5 different teams of riders and designs heavily referencing already existing Kamen Rider characters, there's a lot to analyze when it comes to this spin-off that seemingly came out of nowhere. But first, how can one download this game? For those interested, here are the methods for each platform, although Android and PC will be much easier than iOS. Keep in mind, there's no region lock to play the game, and it works on rooted devices. Moving on to the gameplay of Ride Kamens. Whether or not you have experience with racing sim games, the gameplay of Ride Kamens can be summed up as managing time, resources, and numbers. There are 2 types of energy used to play, RP and BP. RP is used for the main gameplay loop, which is called Investigation, and BP is used for material farming stages called Battles. Keep in mind, you must complete Chapter 1 of the main story first before you unlock Battles. Investigations consist of you picking one main rider and a support team of 4 other riders, one of which can be a support card set by another player, to explore the setting of Nijigao City, visiting various locations and helping civilians. In the universe of Ride Kamens, riders transform by using items called Chaos Stones, and the investigations are the way that you create, power up, and attach new skills to each rider's respective Chaos Stone. Chaos Stones are similar to equipable gear, in the way that the cards that you own have their own stats and abilities, and the Chaos Stones themselves have different ones. You receive 1 Chaos Stone at the end of every investigation session, specifically for the main card that you choose. Each card has 2 main attributes, which indicate that it will be easier to gather points towards these specific stats during investigations. Ideally, you want to gather these stats and use a team of support riders with the same main attributes, as it will add up towards a multiplier, ensuring even more stat gains. If you need help putting together a team, you can always press this button, which will automatically create a team with matching attributes. There are 5 districts you can enter for investigations, each having 2 main attributes of their own. Choose an area with the same main attributes as your card, and get a 5% boost to gains for those stats. Upon entering investigations, you are given 24 turns, split into 2 phases with an intermission in between, to take different actions that will build up the stats and skills of your Chaos Stone. During these turns, you can choose different locations to visit relating to the different stats: red, green, blue, and yellow. Doing any action takes up energy, which you can replenish by drinking coffee. Energy management is crucial, as the more tired you are, the more likely it is for you to fail during your location visits, meaning you won't gain any stats at all. The more points you invest into a specific color, the more it will raise in rank, with the max being an SS rank at 1000 points. The color with the most points at the end of the investigation will be the main color that the Chaos Stone takes on. You will notice icons of your support cards showing up under different locations. Your goal is to activate and chain together as many different support skills as possible to maximize your point earnings. When you visit a location with a support rider, you will automatically activate that card skill, as well as receive more points than if you visited the location alone. It can also trigger short story episodes for that character, which gives you further stat boosts. In short, you want to visit areas with support riders, activate their skills, and unlock their story episodes. There will be a small bar that appears under each support rider, which, when filled, will unlock a special episode for that area and boost your points. Another way to spend your turns is with requests. Requests work separately from locations, as you can choose various tasks to gain stat points without the use of support cards, add new skills to your Chaos Stone, level up skills for your Chaos Stone, or level up the bar for your support units. However, in order to do requests, you must first meet a certain threshold of points. Despite having to wait until you reach the required stats, requests can prove to be incredibly useful, sometimes giving you more stat gains than visiting a location would and having the ability to give you useful skills. Occasionally, there is a fever time mechanic that activates and lasts 3 turns. During this state, your actions take less energy, your stat gains will become greater, and you are guaranteed to receive great success results from every location visit within those 3 turns. Make the most of it, as you can easily gain more than 100 points towards a specific stat within a single turn. The intermission between the 2 phases involves checking in to see if you have reached 500 points for one of your card's main attributes within the first 12 turns. If you don't reach this goal, don't worry, as this is simply an extra incentive and not a requirement to pass the investigation. At the end of the intermission, you get extra points allocated to every color. If you fail to reach the 500 point goal, you get +5 to every color, whereas if you succeeded, then you get +30. The colors aren't solely stats, as there is an emotion mechanic. Different colors are associated with different emotions, and at the end of the investigation, there will be a transformation scene for your rider. There are 2 different cutscenes that will play depending on what emotion your rider has, although as far as I can tell, this is purely for aesthetics and doesn't affect anything gameplay-wise. Now, what if you can't be bothered to keep all of these mechanics in mind? For one, there's a replay button to simply revisit the last location you went to. Going further, there's toggles for loop, skip, and auto. Loop will simply repeat the same action, skip will breeze past all of the animations and story episodes, and auto will simply play the investigation for you. The AI isn't the best at making decisions, but it is a convenient option. That was the investigation part. Now time for battles, which is where the strength of your Chaos Stones will be tested. Keep in mind, you can only deploy a card if you have a Chaos Stone for that card. If you don't have a Chaos Stone, you don't get to use that card. A bright side though, is that even if you fail to defeat the boss, you will still receive rewards. Battles are where you will be farming level up items and ascension items for your cards. For the boss, there is a level as well as a combat power number indicating the difficulty. You'll want your team to have a higher combat power than the boss, as well as using units that match the boss's weakness. Similar to investigations, you want as many skills activating as possible during battle. Another aspect of team building is that by using the canon teams within the story, for example, a team with all members of Justice Ride, you unlock a link skill that can be used during battle, increasing your damage output. The battles themselves are chibi-styled AFK combat with not much interaction on our end, aside from activating skills or tapping for the finishing move. The game is a racing sim after all, so the focus of gameplay is raising your units and aiming for higher stats. Luckily, the developers put in a skip button as well as a sweep function to save time. Now, the part everyone is wondering about, the gacha. This game is a gacha game, which was a controversial point for many when it was announced. But what exactly are we dealing with? The highest rarity cards are 4 stars, which have a 3% appearance rate and a hard pity at 100 pulls. 100 pulls cost 2,000 diamonds. The first time you limit break a 4-star, you unlock new art as well as live 2D animation for that card. You can limit break with multiple copies of the same card, but you can also gain items for limit breaking through events. Different cards give new interactions during investigations as well as story episodes. Not to mention, for certain cards, the outfit your main rider wears during gameplay will reflect in both the live 2D model as well as the chibi model. Overall, the gacha model seems to be on the more generous side, and the game appears fairly free-to-play friendly. However, only time will tell as this is only the first month of release. Disclaimer: all of the main character names are taken from the official romanized names used on the Riot Commons website or wiki. As for the names of some NPCs and locations, they may be incorrect due to machine translation. This section only covers events within the main story. Chapter 0. You, the main character, are the newly appointed heir to the Cosmos conglomerate after the death of your father. Your butler, Leon Ijo, gives you a stone pendant heirloom from your father before the two of you head to a museum for an event. You find yourself alone in a room full of odd-looking masks, one looking particularly mesmerizing, before your pendant starts glowing in response to it and teleports you to a strange alternate world. You find yourself in a forest, face to face with a bizarre and aggressive monster, but are quickly rescued by a man named Saigo Mikami. Saigo introduces himself as a student of the Rider Academy, where Kamen Riders train in secret for 2 years to eventually graduate and protect civilians. Unsure of where else to go, Saigo takes you to the safety of his dorm room, where the students are preparing for their graduation ceremony. At the ceremony, they must pass an exam where they use an item called a Chaos Ring to transform successfully for the first time, and upon passing, they will be assigned to a special task force that serves the government. The principal nominates his first candidate, a boy named Uryu Takato. Uryu confidently goes up and transforms successfully, but it appears that he is in extreme pain and cannot hold the transformation, even losing control and suddenly punching the student next to him. Despite this odd occurrence, the examiner says that he has passed. The students are confused, but when questioned, the principal reveals that they have been trained to follow Chaosism, a secret society that wants to destroy and rebirth the world. Rather than Kamen Riders, they are Chaos Riders. Everyone is distraught as they've been fooled to believe that they've been training to protect the world this entire time. They try to escape the school in a panic as the principal tries to subdue them and wipe their memories. You and the group of boys find a room in the school's basement with a large collection of masks resembling the one that you saw in the museum, only to be cornered inside of it by the principal. He reveals that everyone has the ability to use the power of chaos due to him modifying their bodies and brainwashing them. Everything was a lie, from the existence of Kamen Riders to their government ties, and it is fruitless to try and fight against the will of chaos. The principal tries to wipe your memories, but the pendant around your neck begins to glow once again and prevents it from happening. You're thrown back into the real world where the strange mask is now cracked. You see a fleeting image of a meteor shower before the mask blinds you with light, causing you to fall unconscious. Chapter 1. After waking up, you meet back with Leon to tell him about the strange events that happened in the museum. He's oddly ecstatic to hear it and reveals that you've officially inherited the family mission to become an agent for Kamen Riders, managing them and aiding in their battles. You're told about the previous generations of riders, with your father serving as an agent in opposition to Chaosism. Leon also goes on to give you a rider phone, a device meant to make communication easier for you, Leon, and future Kamen Riders. There's also a rider station now under your ownership, acting as a base of operations to train and cultivate Kamen Riders. The base is mainly underground, hidden under a building called the Kamen Cafe, disguised as a concept cafe where everyone wears masquerade masks. It acts as a way to hide everyone's identity, creating an atmosphere where people feel more comfortable gossiping. Leon, with his ability to blend into the background, can gather information for you. But what is your goal, exactly, as an agent aside from managing Kamen Riders? It turns out there are items called Chaos Stones scattered throughout Nijigao City, which are essential for riders. It's your job to figure out the location of these Chaos Stones, and collect them in order to strengthen the powers of the Kamen Riders under your care. After opening the Kamen Cafe for the first time, you overhear a customer mention seeing a strange glowing stone at the park. You decide to follow the lead in hopes of collecting your first Chaos Stone, but end up encountering Chaosism foot soldiers who are also aiming to get the stone. The situation looks dire, but it's none other than Saigo who rushes in to save you as thanks for helping him escape the academy. However, he has no powers and thus gets beaten up by the soldiers. Your pendant glows as the soldiers close in, blinding them and giving an opportunity for you and Saigo to run away with the Chaos Stone. You take Saigo to the Kamen Cafe to hide and catch up on what happened after the incident at the Rider Academy. We get a flashback of Saigo and his classmate Haruma Iori after the events of Chapter 0. They have no idea where they are, trying to search for the Rider Academy building as a landmark, but it seems to have disappeared with Nijigao City taking its place. They see the same meteor shower that we did as they climb trees trying to look over the city. Unable to make sense of their surroundings, they figure the best place to try and find is Haruma's childhood home, as it was close to the academy. Haruma wonders how his family has been as he hasn't seen them since becoming a student, while Saigo says that he doesn't remember anything before entering the academy. They eventually find what Haruma claims is his house, only to find that there is now an entirely different family living there. The wife of the family comes outside to ask the boys if they're looking for someone, confused when Haruma mentions his family being the previous owners. It turns out, this new family has been living there for the past 30 years. After looking at the street signs, Saigo notes that they're in Nijigao City, despite Haruma insisting it was Nogao City where he was born and raised. Saigo theorizes that since their bodies were modified, their memories could have easily been modified as well. Harma has a hard time processing it, before eventually deciding that they should go to the police for help. As expected though, the police officer isn't convinced when Harma claims to be a victim of a secret society who has modified his body. The officer walks away believing Harma is going through delusions, making way for a well-dressed man to approach the two boys. He gives them a note with an address written on it, telling them to seek shelter there. Despite the natural suspicion about the situation, Harma and Saigo decide to follow the note and find a fully furnished apartment stocked with food waiting for them. Saigo doesn't want to trust the situation just yet, but Harma insists that they need to focus on staying alive. The flashback ends with Saigo revealing that the apartment is located near the park, explaining why he was able to find you. Leon offers to go buy ingredients to cook Saigo a meal as a thanks for protecting his master. On his way there though, he bumps into Kyosuke Araki, the student who was punched at the graduation ceremony who is now running away from Chaosism foot soldiers. It seems that Kyosuke has found one of the Chaos Stones, causing the soldiers to hunt him down. Leon senses that it won't end well, so he pickpockets the stone from Kyosuke and tries to flee. But he gets caught, and, not wanting to give it back to Kyosuke, decides to put it in his mouth and swallow it. The soldiers, not wanting Leon to escape, drag him away and take him as a hostage. Back at the cafe, you receive a ransom call from the minions. They're willing to release Leon if you give the Chaos Stone that you took from the park. During his confinement, Leon tries to find out what the goal of Chaosism is, and the principal of the Rider Academy himself is the one that reveals that combining all of the Chaos Stones would yield enough power to destroy the world. After some time, you finally show up at the hostage location, ready to give your stone away in order to save your butler. But Saigo stops you, realizing that he wants to fight. Through all of his screen time, Saigo has been presented as a very pessimistic, unemotional, and closed person. He never had a true desire to be a Kamen Rider. Rather, he simply did it as he didn't see any other options available to him at the time. But this is the moment he realizes that he genuinely wants to be a rider who protects civilians, brings peace, and saves people from danger. He transforms for the first time into Kamen Rider Saigo. He struggles to fight off the will of chaos that's consuming him, but your pendant glows. It seems to purify Saigo and allow him to complete his transformation. Saigo is now able to defeat all of the foot soldiers, saving Leon and becoming a full-fledged Kamen Rider in the process. You offer to be his agent as he is now on the path to figuring out what his goals are and what kind of hero he wants to be. He accepts, receiving a rider phone and an invitation to come visit the Kamen Cafe anytime. The chapter closes off with a scene of Uryu Takato and his older brother Titan Takato, the man who gave the apartment to Saigo and Harma, making note of the fact that Saigo has become a Kamen Rider. Chapter 2. Harma and Saigo visit the cafe, and you invite them to the VIP room where they can take their mask off and talk to you in private. The three of you discuss the events that have happened over the past few days, trying to make sense of it all. It appears that your pendant is a Chaos Stone itself, or something similar in nature to it. You also conclude that the strange mask that you saw in the museum was a culmination of Chaos Stones, and the meteor shower that the three of you witnessed was the stones breaking apart and scattering across the city. The boys mentioned seeing what looked like a stone at a nearby elementary school, which leads to the three of you heading there to find it. When you get there, it turns out that an elementary schooler already picked it up, and he refuses to give it to you. You manage to bribe the kid with money in exchange for the stone, but just as you receive it, foot soldiers appear. Saigo transforms and fights them off, leading to the soldiers running away as they realize that they no longer had the advantage. Despite this victory, it leads to an argument between Harma and Saigo. Harma expresses frustration at not being able to transform, as he doesn't want Saigo to fight on his own. The responsibility of fighting against Chaosism is too much for one person. But Saigo doesn't care about his own safety, stating that he's okay with fighting alone. Harma isn't willing to back down in the argument, leading to Saigo hitting a pressure point and knocking Harma out cold to prove that he isn't ready yet. Saigo leaves on his own to chase after the foot soldiers, while you drag Harma back to the cafe. When Harma wakes up, he confides in you about his conflicted feelings regarding everything that's happened. He fears that all of his memories may be false, despite how much he thinks about his family. The only thing that he can be certain of was his time within the Rider Academy, and what he remembers is his classmates often fighting. He admits that he didn't see his dormmates as friends during their academy days, rather just classmates, but he still went out of his way to be the mediator when they couldn't get along, as he hated seeing people upset. The two of you reflect on the difficult situation being faced, speculating that Saigo fights in order to find a purpose, rather than simply living with no memories or goals. Seeing Saigo's bravery encourages the two of you to keep fighting in your own ways, renewing your motivation as you try to track where Saigo is from your Rider phone. Saigo has already found out where the Chaosism foot soldiers ran off to, but finds himself surrounded by 20 of them at once, who demand his Chaos Stone. Saigo refuses to turn himself over, not fearing death as he has nothing to lose and no one who would mourn him. Dying on a battlefield would be his ideal scenario. You and Harma finally find out where Saigo is, only to be cut off by soldiers standing guard outside of the building. Harma, not wanting you or Saigo to be harmed, finds the power within himself to transform into Kamen Rider Harma. He risks being corrupted by the will of chaos, but fights it off on his own through sheer will, as he is a mind free of negative thoughts. The soldiers are beaten easily as Harma is surprisingly able to use a large amount of power on his first transformation. The two of you move on to find Saigo, who appears after taking out the group of soldiers who surrounded him. Harma and Saigo team up to defeat all of the minions, easily beating them with their combined teamwork. The next day, they come back to the cafe, where you welcome Harma as a new member of the team and hand him his Rider phone. Chapter 3. You receive a tip on your Rider phone from its AI program, Zero, which searches the web for social media posts related to Chaos Stones. It appears that a Chaos Stone has been spotted at an elderly care facility within the area. When you arrive there with Saigo and Harma, a caregiver tells you that the stone was found in the garden. However, shortly after its discovery, an old woman under their care went missing. The caregiver shows you to the garden, but what greets you there is a mysterious glowing door in place of where the stone used to be. The appearance of the door reminds you of a similar one that appeared when you were taken to the world of the Rider Academy. The caregiver tells you that the old woman apparently entered the door, causing one of the staff members to go after her, but neither of them have returned. Seeing no other option, the three of you enter the door to search for them, but what greets you is an alternate reality where everything from the color of the sky and the plants seem different. Oddly, you come across a stuffed doll that's able to speak. He introduces himself as Kenichi, a resident of this world. We cut to the location of the missing lady, and it turns out that the staff member who followed her into this strange world was Shion Fukumi, one of Harma and Saigo's old classmates. A monster appears, and Shion attempts to run away with the old woman, only for her to insist that he go on without her, as she has business here. They get separated as the lady wanders off, Shion unable to follow her due to the monster chasing him. The scene cuts back to Saigo and Harma, who have transformed and are fending off a large group of monsters. Shion runs into you as he tries to find the door where you entered from, and you find out what he's been up to since the graduation ceremony. It turns out, Shion has been working at the Nijigao Senior Home in order to have a place to live and be able to afford meals. We see a flashback of the moment when Shion met the old woman at the park. She seems to be overly concerned about the doll, to the point of calling it a child and telling her caretaker that they must take it to the hospital, as it is damaged. Shion walks by and she mistakes him for someone named Kenichi. This is where we learn that the old lady's name is Kaoru, and that Kenichi is her son. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Shion offers to repair the doll for the old lady in exchange for a meal, as he currently doesn't have any means of living after being transported to Nijigao City. Kaoru agrees, and they go to the senior home to carry out their deal. Afterwards, Kaoru's caretaker pulls Shion aside and offers him a job as an assistant. The caretaker notes that Shion has the natural qualities of a caretaker and a kind-hearted disposition, and it would help as they are currently understaffed. Shion, of course, accepts. We cut back to the present, where the monsters seem to continue to spawn endlessly. Saigo and Harma decide to stay and try to hold them off, telling you to take Shion and leave through the door, which you reluctantly agree to. You take Shion to the VIP room of the Kamen Cafe, hoping you can come up with a plan to get Kaoru out as well. This is when a masked man suddenly walks into the room. He offers you knowledge on the relationship between Chaos Stones and the other world that you visited, on the condition that you don't pry further than what he feels like telling you. He reveals that this alternate world is called the Chaos World. It comes into existence from the light of the Chaos Stones. The world that the Rider Academy existed in was one such Chaos World. He goes on to tell you how the monsters inside of the Chaos World are created. The light of the Chaos Stone draws people in, and the more time one spends in the Chaos World, the more your desires and instincts are drawn out. It continues to corrupt you until your superficial appearance is torn away. All that remains is a monster who has given up on being human, instead completely taken over by your desires and base instincts. On top of that, once someone becomes a monster, they can never return back to human form. The Chaos World reflects the heart of those who wander in. Therefore, the laws that govern it depend on what the person believes in their mind. The man leaves just as mysteriously as he appeared, before you and Shion realize that you must go back and save Kaoru as soon as possible. As you try to think of a plan, Shion reflects on his lack of abilities that would allow him to help. He notes that during the days of the Rider Academy, he received good grades, making people believe that he would surely become a rider. But he lacks physical strength, a desire to fight, and experience in battle. When he faces difficult situations or persecution from others, he doesn't get angry. Rather, he cries, leading him to believe that he is simply a weak person, not suitable to be a Kamen Rider. But you, as an agent and supporter of Kamen Riders, tell Shion that strength comes in many different forms, none less valid than another. Shion's strength is in caring for others, and that may be the key to figuring out how to release Kaoru from the Chaos World. Saigo and Harma are still fighting the monsters, but find that they simply keep reappearing. Kaoru wanders in, which leads to them noticing that the monsters only attack them and not Kaoru, showing that this world revolves around her. Kaoru continues to wander off until she meets a monster directly, asking it to show her where Kenichi's home is. She meets a vision of Kenichi, who welcomes her before eerily saying that her submission into chaos will be completed soon. You and Shion enter the Chaos World again, asking the Kenichi doll where Kaoru went, to which it replies, her happy place. You eventually find Kaoru with the fake vision of Kenichi. She's groaning in pain, nearly about to transform into a monster. Seeing this, Shion finds his will to fight, realizing that empathy is a valid motivation behind fighting, and transforms into Kamen Rider Shion. He risks submitting to the will of chaos due to transforming, but fights it, going on to defeat the monsters surrounding Kaoru and rescuing her. Everyone is able to leave the Chaos World, with the Chaos Stone coming into your possession. As you depart, you start to wonder if the stone pendant you have could create a world similar to the Chaos World. We end with a small glance of our next rider, fighting alone within a blue-colored Chaos World. Chapter 4. We start with a glance into an unknown house, where someone has discovered the existence of Siru. He sees it as a fun opportunity to hack into the program to track the IP of the users, finding it amusing when the identity of the Cosmos conglomerate heir shows up. At the Kamen Cafe, Shion tells you that he has now found an apartment to live in, hoping to lead a more normal life after last chapter's events. You suddenly get a notification on your rider phone that a Chaos Stone was found near the police station. The two of you arrive there to find that a door to the Chaos World has already opened, and decide that despite wanting to wait for Saigo and Harma to show up, time is running out and the two of you will handle it alone for the time being. You note the difference in color compared to the previous Chaos World, concluding that the color of the world changes depending on the color of the Chaos Stone. As you walk around, a talking stoplight blocks your path, saying that you are not allowed to run past the red light. Confused, you question the stoplight until it reveals that someone else ran past it earlier, prompting you to ignore its request and do the same in order to find the person who was lured in. You find a policeman attempting to fight monsters with his gun, but the bullets aren't causing any harm to them, causing Shion to rush in and take care of it. The policeman is astonished, saying that earlier he came across a young man who could also transform. You and Shion go on to find this unknown Kamen Rider, only to find out that it is Jigen Gamo, the doormate of Harma, Saigo, and Shion. It seems that he has already figured out how to transform and has been fighting monsters for a while. Shion questions Jigen on how he ended up here, which we see through a flashback. Jigen, upon the shift to our reality, immediately ended up at the police station attempting to report what happened. Similar to what happened to Harma, the policeman is in disbelief, but upon hearing that Jigen has no home or knowledge of where he's going, the officer offers Jigen a place to stay until he can figure something out. Jigen ends his recounting of events, saying that he accepted the offer, but that one day the policeman went missing, ending up in the Chaos World. While the conversation is happening, the officer is already going through the process of becoming a monster, seeing a vision of his superintendent praising him. You eventually find the officer again as he's being corrupted, and Jigen runs up to him to question why he is giving into the will of chaos. The officer explains that he has become frustrated with his lack of authority and inability to solve the world's issues. He's a police officer with the authority to carry a gun, yet cannot freely use it. He can arrest people, but if he encounters a despicable criminal who deserves death, he has no authority to give him a sentence. He believes that the lack of care from the police is the true reason that crime thrives. If he just had more power, he could make a change. But Jigen argues that the officer is overreaching his authority, as he is no longer just coming after criminals. He's attempting to fight the monsters of chaosism with no knowledge of them or powers, and that it's the duty of Kamen Riders to fight them. The argument goes on with neither side backing down, until it's interrupted by the appearance of a large, towering monster. One that appears much more dangerous than anything that's been encountered so far. The mysterious hacker that we saw earlier, now transformed into a Kamen Rider, suddenly appears, claiming that we're no match for it and starts dragging Jigen away. We cut back to the house from earlier, with members Shizuru, Kaiba, and Rui observing what's happening in their house. It turns out that the hacker, Q, is sending them footage from inside the Chaos World. Once Q has separated Jigen from everyone else, Jigen angrily asks about his motives and identity. Q transforms and immediately gives a challenge. Who can defeat the monster first? He will give Jigen and the rest of the boys an hour head start to defeat it and win the challenge. If the hour is up and it hasn't been defeated, Q will swoop in and do the job himself to steal the win. The winner gets the Chaos Stone when all is done. Jigen doesn't want to entertain Q's suspicious behavior, but Q insists that he has no ulterior motive. He's purely doing it for fun. Jigen still doesn't quite believe him, leaving Q to go regroup with his former classmates. The rest of the group also ended up running away from the monster, now searching for Jigen's whereabouts. Shion recalls how Jigen has always been stubborn, and even when receiving good grades at the Rider Academy, it seemed that Jigen was never truly happy. Jigen manages to reunite with Yu and the other boys, only to immediately start fighting with Shion. They argue due to fundamental differences in their mindsets. Shion has a naturally empathetic personality, sometimes caring more about others than himself. Jigen is stubborn with a one-track mind. He has very strong opinions about what he believes in, but despite being wholehearted about those beliefs, he fails to see the other side. Jigen finds offense to Shion's criticisms, believing that it's not inherently wrong to focus on what one thinks is right or tackle challenges head-on. Jigen's anger consumes him, making him seek out Q to take him up on the challenge and prove himself. Q sees that Jigen isn't thinking very rationally at the moment, so he gives a word of advice as well as more knowledge on how the Chaos World operates. Once the officer is fully transformed into a monster, the door to the Chaos World will close, and those inside can never get out. The time limit that Q gave exists for a reason. The rest of the group catches up and finally meets Q, not understanding his motives either, with Saigo even accusing him of being a follower of Chaosism. Q answers vaguely, saying that he is half correct and half incorrect. Q believes in the power of chaos and its control over fate, going on to explain the concept to us. Chaos, and subsequently Chaosism, is a fundamental principle of the world. All living things in the world have free will, and therefore the power to change principles of the world. Chaosism seeks to gather the power of all living things collectively. When a person's mask is stripped away and they are turned into the pure form of that power, that is chaos. Chaos stones are fragments of that power, and therefore are able to create an entire reality based on a person's chaotic will. Q finds it an exciting idea of just what kind of power will result when the stones are gathered, but reveals that it doesn't necessarily mean the destruction of the world. It depends on who will be in possession of the stones when it happens, as chaos is simply a vessel for someone to manipulate to their desires. Q takes special interest in Saigo, asking him specifically whether he believes he can fight the will of chaos and change destiny, but Saigo doesn't know how to answer. All he knows is that he has a duty as a Kamen Rider to fight and protect, which seems to satisfy Q. The group moves on to fight the monster once and for all, where Jigen struggles to come to terms with just what his goal is. He had always believed that justice could only be achieved as a Kamen Rider, and that upon becoming one, he could destroy all evil. But upon seeing what has become of the police officer that took him in, he realizes that pure beliefs are meaningless if you eventually lose sight of your initial intentions and become consumed by the idea of power. He begs the officer to come to his senses, telling him that he can still serve justice as long as there's people that need him. Finally realizing his faults, Jigen goes on to transform and defeat the monster. Freeing the officer from the Chaos World. You collect the Chaos Stone and offer Jigen a place on the team, but he refuses. Jigen plays it off as him not intending to be friends with the group when Harma questions him, but Jigen pulls you aside, claiming that he has something to say. It's not that he doesn't want to be a part of the team, it's that he doesn't feel worthy. He wants to train, become stronger, and face things on his own. Then one day, he can show you a person worthy of becoming a Kamen Rider. We end the chapter with a cut to some construction workers finding another Chaos Stone, believing that it's a valuable jewel. But a transformed Kyosuke Araki shows up to threaten them and demand them to hand it over. Chapter 5. The Kamen Cafe is out of seafood, and as Leon already has a lot on his plate, you offer to go to the supermarket to buy more. It turns out, Kyosuke and his friend Matsunosuke Agata work at the supermarket, with Kyosuke selling meat and Matsunosuke selling fish. They realize that you were the person that was present during the graduation exam, expressing gratitude for helping them escape the academy. Their shifts end before you're done shopping, and they tell you that they've been working there ever since the incident and living together with their other friend Narashi Kamui. Matsunosuke is relieved to hear that his former classmates are safe under your care, wanting to keep in touch with them and inviting you to their house. When you get there, you're shocked to see that they've been squatting in a dirty, abandoned hotel due to not having IDs or the paperwork needed to legally rent a place. Not wanting to be rude, you accept the offer to go in for a tour and see the dynamic between the three roommates. Matsunosuke is the most normal of the three, being very down-to-earth and easygoing. Kyosuke and Narashi butt heads often, with Kyosuke being a hot-headed bodybuilder, whereas Narashi is an artist with a pretentious and narcissistic personality. Nonetheless, they try to keep things civil due to having a guest around, and Kyosuke announces that he's leaving to search for a Chaos Stone. This surprises you, as you weren't aware that others knew about the existence of the stones. You ask them how they knew about the stones and reveal your job as an agent of Kamen Riders. It turns out the members were not aware of the purpose of the stones, and that Kyosuke was collecting them purely out of the hope that they might be important somehow. Kyosuke invites you to collect stones with him, as he now wishes to collect them all to become the strongest Kamen Rider. As he searches for them on foot, you ask him why he wishes to become stronger, to which he simply answers that Kamen Riders are born to fight, therefore the more strength the better. Leon pops up out of nowhere, admitting that he was following you the whole time due to concern that you'd meet some bad people. He warns Kyosuke that even with the Chaos Ring, which helps subdue the will of chaos when transforming, the power is still incredibly hard to control, citing the incident at graduation when he was punched. A message from Zero interrupts the conversation, stating that a Chaos Stone was found in a nearby factory. By the time you and Kyosuke arrive, Chaosism foot soldiers are already searching the area. They eventually find it, getting ready to leave, which prompts Kyosuke to rush in and challenge them to avoid it falling into their hands. He transforms and chases them off, making you commend him for getting the stone, but telling him it was a stupid idea to jump in without a thought. Upon getting home, you witness Kyosuke and Narushi start an argument that lasts an entire hour, until Matsunosuke suggests a fight to settle things. The more they argue, the more it's made clear that their personalities clash in a very superficial way, with both of them ultimately being self-centered. One is focused on strength, whereas the other is focused on intellectual superiority. Matsunosuke tells you that they've always fought since their school days, and usually settle their arguments with competitions, both currently being at 99 wins and 99 losses. Kyosuke ultimately leaves as he can't stand being in the same room as Narushi, with Narushi following suit and going back to his room to paint. With just you and Matsunosuke left in the room, you ask why they even live together if they seem to hate each other so much. In response, we get a flashback of what happened to the trio when they ended up in Nijigao City. Matsunosuke and Narushi were the first ones to meet each other, finding the abandoned hotel and going on to search for a job in order to afford food. When Matsunosuke finds the job openings at the market, Narushi refuses as he can't imagine working in such conditions. Suddenly, foot soldiers find and corner them at the empty supermarket. Despite getting hit, Matsunosuke refuses to fight as he believes in the fact that riders are supposed to bring peace. Kyosuke suddenly rushes in, willing to fight instead despite his fears of losing control to the will of chaos. He transforms despite the worry of his teammates and manages to beat up the minions. When Matsunosuke asks Narushi if it'd be okay to invite Kyosuke to stay with them, Narushi simply replies that Kyosuke can do whatever he likes, as it'd be useful to have him around. The flashback ends with Matsunosuke telling us that despite both of the boys being selfish, deep down they don't see each other as bad people, which is why he doesn't stop them from fighting or competing with each other, since it's an opportunity for them to understand each other's desires. You leave the hotel to find Kyosuke, who ran off to the docks. You learn that he has a sense of inferiority when he sees Shion, Haruma, Saigo, and Jigen, as they seem righteous and pure in their intentions, which he lacks. His motivation is simply strength, as he sees himself as too stupid to pursue anything else. But you comfort him, telling him he's allowed to have his own motivations on why he wants to be a rider, even if they're a little selfish. Narushi shows up for their duel, hoping that by winning and reaching 100 victories it will settle things once and for all. They both transform and start fighting, only to find that they are an even match for each other. Matsunosuke shows up, asking them to call it a day as they fought enough, only for Kyosuke and Narushi to decide that they will battle until 200 victories instead. You leave with Matsunosuke as they continue fighting, leaving the two of them to tire themselves out. Presumably, the next day, Kyosuke comes by and visits the Kamen cafe asking for a rider phone so that you can be his agent. Chapter 6. Leon expresses how proud he is that you're successfully gathering more riders and forming new bonds, continuing the legacy of your father. Suddenly, Narushi comes into the cafe, saying that he found a Chaos Stone the other day and wants to know everything about them. Leon helps explain everything that's been learned so far. The stone awakens people's instincts, those instincts being separated into two categories: innate instincts programmed into humans from birth, and acquired instincts that are gained through experience. The Chaos world emerges from those instincts. Narushi takes out the stone he found, staring into it hoping to see his own instincts reflected. You warn him of the dangers, but he denies the possibility of him turning into a monster and leaves without a word. The perspective follows Narushi as he wanders into a skate park, staring into the stone to purposely try and open a chaos world to see his potential. He gets confronted by a regular who initially wants him to leave, but becomes hypnotized by the chaos stone in Narushi's hand and tries to take it. As they fight, the man's mind becomes consumed by the chaos stone, creating a door which he blindly walks into, leaving Narushi stunned. From the cafe, you get a notification from Tsuru about the chaos stone, and are about to head out when Narushi comes in offering his assistance. He shuts down Leon's idea of gathering more riders to help, as he doesn't want to risk someone else getting the stone that he found. You hesitantly go along with it and run to the skate park with Narushi. As the two of you enter the chaos world, you immediately see multiple monsters spawn right away. Narushi transforms and defeats them, but seems more focused on fighting the monsters than saving the person who came in. He reveals that he used you, posting the information about the chaos stone online so that you would come and help him get his stone back. He believes that the man who wandered in is scum that doesn't contribute anything to the world, only for a talking graffiti skull to tell Narushi that the man is actually a skateboarding world champion. The man himself appears and becomes angry at Narushi's lack of respect, making the ground beneath the two of you crumble and break away into a dark abyss. The light of your pendant allows you to see your surroundings, with Narushi deducing that you're trapped under the skate park within the sewer system. You search endlessly for an exit but can't find one, and Narushi goes off to start painting self-portraits of himself on the walls with mysteriously colored mud. You ask Narushi why he seems to only ever paint portraits of himself, to which he answers that the truth of art is that artists pursue beauty. Classical paintings of subjects such as nature are simply ordinary beauty, but his own beauty is on another level. It urges you to ask why he became a writer in the first place, considering the duties of a writer don't match up with his goals in art. But he sees becoming a writer as an evolution of his beauty. Turning into a superpowered being would cement his beauty as otherworldly. The ultimate self-portrait that he will create will be of him as the ultimate Kamen Rider. You keep trying to find a way out before the two of you succumb to starvation, but still fail to find an exit. But the walls suddenly start shaking and in jumps a transformed Kyosuke who has come to save you. He was out searching for more chaos stones when he saw the door and entered the chaos world. Par for the course, they start arguing, especially at the idea that only one of them will walk out with the chaos stone. Kyosuke questions how Narushi even managed to transform into a Kamen Rider for the first time, which Narushi refuses to elaborate on. But we see in a flashback that after seeing Kyosuke transform, Narushi was frustrated at the idea of not being able to do it himself. Despite hours of transformation attempts motivated by his anger, he was only truly able to transform when he looked out the window and saw a construction worker in danger of falling, leading him to transform for the first time to catch the worker and save his life. You and Narushi manage to escape the sewers with the help of Kyosuke and go on to search for the skateboarder. You eventually find him, surrounded by visions of his supporters who cheer him on. Narushi transforms and goes into fight, telling the man that it's pathetic that he can only live in a fake world of praise, rather than pursuing his passions in the real world. The monsters defeated, and Narushi tells the skateboarder that one must believe in their potential and pursue it in order to become their ideal self. Narushi lets you keep the Chaos Stone due to your help, and in exchange, you offer him a rider phone to support his activities. He accepts on the condition that he's able to decide how he lives and dies, as he doesn't fear death. Art lives on, even after death. Chapter 7. Leon expresses concern for the trio of boys in the industrial district due to their poor living conditions and struggle to afford food, and decides that the cafe will deliver food to them on a regular basis in order to keep them healthy for their rider activities. You go visit them to deliver food, but only find Matsunosuke in the hotel, as Narushi and Kyosuke have gone out to find Chaos Stones. Matsunosuke opens up to you about how he struggles to make sense of his identity and everything that has happened, recalling a strange event that happened at the entrance ceremony for the Rider Academy. They were told to each enter a capsule in order of their ages, which would analyze their physical abilities for data purposes, and use that data for their future rider suits. Matsunosuke was the first to go as the oldest student, and upon his request to see the data, the school officials denied it, telling him it was meant for the government's eyes only. In the present, Matsunosuke realizes how that was likely the moment when their bodies and memories were modified, with the capsules being powered by Chaos Stones. He decides that despite the price he had to pay, he'd use the power he was given for righteous purposes. You get a notification from Siru, but this time, it's not for the location of a Chaos Stone. Instead, it mysteriously says that there is someone who knows about the past of Kamen Riders. You and Matsunosuke follow the location that Siru gives and end up at the docks. The person there ends up being Midas, one of the 7 generals of Chaosism, who operate in a group called the Old Seven. Claiming that he came here to test Matsunosuke's strength, he presents a Chaos Stone. It turns out, it was the same stone used to power the chamber that Matsunosuke entered during the entrance exam, thus having a special connection to him. Matsunosuke looks into the stone, seeing visions of him playing baseball in a field within Nijigao City, which Midas says are memories of his past life. Midas takes the stone back, saying that he has more in his possession and is willing to meet with Kyosuke and Narashi the next day. Yu and Matsunosuke meet with them in the hotel and give an update on what happened. Kyosuke and Narashi seem eager to get their memories back as well as get their hands on the Chaos Stones, but Matsunosuke can't trust what's happening, believing that it's a trick. Ultimately, Matsunosuke can't change their minds, but he tells them not to meet with Midas in hopes that they can figure out another way to regain their memories. We cut to Midas as he meets with the other members of the Old Seven, who criticize him for his involvement in showing Matsunosuke his memories. But Midas assures that it is fine, as they have full authority over everything that happens in Nijigao City. We cut away, and you end up seeing Matsunosuke at the skate park, where he's trying to deal with his feelings after seeing the memories within the Chaos Stone. He believes that the real him has been stolen, and wishes that he hadn't seen his old past. His conflict lies in how he knows Kyosuke and Narashi won't give up on regaining their memories, despite the pain it may cause them. Faced with a tough situation, you comfort Matsunosuke, promising to keep his feelings a secret from the other two at his request. The two of you go back to the hotel, only to find that Kyosuke and Narashi ended up meeting with Midas despite Matsunosuke's warning. At the dock, the three have already met, albeit Midas is annoyed by their overwhelming greed for the stones. As he is about to give the two of them their stones, Matsunosuke runs in to try and stop them. Midas suddenly transforms into his alternate form, Mitashal, and tells Matsunosuke to show his strength if he wants to prevent it. Matsunosuke finally transforms for the first time and fights. But Midas is too powerful, leading to an argument between the three friends on whether or not to continue the fight. Despite their initial disagreement, Kyosuke and Narashi eventually reveal that they didn't want their memories back in the first place, they really just wanted the stones. But they need Matsunosuke to be safe more than anything, so they choose to fight by his side. Kyosuke and Narashi transform, and the three of them take on Midas together. But even with their combined efforts, they fail to defeat him, leading to Midas using his finishing move, which cancels the transformation of all three boys at once and injures them heavily. As soon as Midas disappears, you call Leon to send in a car, hoping to take them to safety and treat their wounds. They realize that they were in over their heads, but Matsunosuke sees it as proof that it's only a matter of time before they will become more powerful. Leon treats their injuries at the base, thankfully not finding anything serious. Matsunosuke pulls you aside to tell you thanks, and that he's found a true reason to fight now: revenge. He's disgusted by chaosism and wants to destroy everything related to it. He reveals that the vision he saw within the stone wasn't just him playing baseball. It also showed him getting dragged away by a monster and unable to fight it off. Frustrated with his past failures, he wishes to trust in you as an agent and fight for what he believes in. He tells you that you're a kind person, but that ultimately you need to be careful with trusting people and believing that every writer is an honest and decent person. Perhaps one day, you will get stabbed in the back by someone with bad intentions. We end the chapter with a look at Saigo and Harma exiting an arcade, when they encounter someone that looks exactly like Q, but it seems that this person has no idea who they are. Chapter 8. At the Kamen Cafe, you talk to Leon about the memories sealed away within the Chaos Stones, to which he supports your desire to help the riders recover their past. You open up to Leon about how, despite having similar goals and paths in life, your father was ultimately a stranger. He was too busy with his duties as the head of the conglomerate to spend time with you. You get a notification from Zero that there seems to be suspicious activity on SNS. It's a challenge from Q. He has posted a map showing the location of the next Chaos Stone and wants to play a game to see who gets it first, on the condition that Saigo participates against him. Saigo reluctantly agrees, with Harma tagging along for the ride. The three of you end up in the entertainment district, with the location being a live house. As you approach the building, you run into members of a band who seem to be arguing and on the verge of breaking up. As they pass by, one of the bandmen drops a Chaos Stone from his pocket. Saigo and Harma confront him and ask how he got it, but the bandman gets annoyed, saying it's not their business, before running away. By the time you catch up to him, a door has already opened. Q suddenly pops up, finding the situation amusing and reiterating that as long as they save the man, the win is theirs. Q wins if the man ends up turning into a monster, but this time, he doesn't plan on just sitting back and watching, so Saigo and Harma will have to be careful of interferences from him. Harma and Saigo are disgusted by his lack of care for what happens to the man, but Q believes that since it's what the man wants, it's ultimately his fault for succumbing to desires. Everyone enters the Chaos World and meets a talking microphone. You try to ask it where the bandman is, only for Q's lookalike to show up. He introduces himself as Lance Tendo, and offers to help you by giving a tip. He asks you why you believe the sky is yellow in this world, and you mistakenly believe that it simply boils down to the color of the stone. But he explains that the glow of the stone also represents a person's heart. The colors depend on the emotion, red representing anger, passion, excitement, and caution. Blue represents sadness, intelligence, sincerity, and exhilaration. Green is for fun, peace, healing, and harmony. And finally, yellow is joy, hope, energy, and innocence. The heart is reflected in the Chaos World. Therefore, the bandman who created this world must be full of joy. The group is unsure of whether or not to trust what he says, and Lance is questioned as to why he looks exactly like Q. It turns out, Q and Lance are two personalities that share the same body. We see Shizuru and Rui back home, with Shizuru trying to find Lance's whereabouts. Rui doesn't seem very concerned about Lance, but Shizuru brings up the point that if they find the Chaos Stone that contains Lance's memories, they may be able to get rid of Q. Rui brings up the point that it could be Lance that gets booted out of the body, but Shizuru dismisses it, saying he'd just get rid of both of them if it came to that. Q's existence means that Lance could turn to Chaosism at any time. He's only the result of the body modification that they went through. Rui doesn't seem to care though, as he finds Q entertaining. Back in the Chaos World, Lance explains that when he underwent body modification, his personality was altered along with his memories. It seemed that the members of Chaosism didn't see his personality as fit to be a rider. Thus, Q was programmed to override his original personality and train using his body. It also turns out that Lance graduated from the Rider Academy 2 years ago as a 4th generation student, giving a timeline that the academy recruits new students every 2 years. Unlike the 5th generation students we've met so far, Lance/Q officially graduated as a warrior of Chaosism. We get a flashback to Q's time during the Rider Academy, graduating and even being promoted as a Chaosism leader to watch over the entertainment district. His job was to scout new students who would come to the academy and inherit the will of chaos. He would give them Chaos Stones to see if they could handle its power without turning into a monster and recruit them. If they did become a monster, it was Q's job to get rid of them. Saigo and Harma ask how his Lance persona was able to come back, despite it seeming like it was Q who was fully in control. It turns out, Q was one day approached by your father and given a Chaos Stone, the very stone that contained his memories as Lance Tendo, restoring them, but ultimately leading to two clashing personalities fighting over the same body. The group ultimately decides to move on after learning this information, as time is running out, and it was unknown when Q would come back and interfere. Back in the real world, Shion and Jigen shake down Shizuru for more information about Q. but Shizuru gives vague answers in an attempt to draw out information from them instead. Shizuru puts on a facade that he doesn't know much about Q, and leaves to go back home and tell Rui that there are new Kamen Riders in the area who escaped from Chaosism. It seems that they'll be keeping an eye on everyone. Shion and Jigen are walking home when Shion suddenly gets a notification on his rider phone. It's a challenge to race and see who can collect a Chaos Stone first, sent by Slam Days. Meanwhile, Saigo and Harma have found the bandman in the Chaos World. Saigo fails to convince the man, but Harma has better luck with asking him about the band and what happened during their argument. The bandman says that they decided to break up, with it being a miracle that they ever formed in the first place. They all had different colors, different goals, different interests, different attitudes. It was only a matter of time until things fell apart. Harma is unable to convince him to leave, but gets the idea to leave the Chaos World for a bit to track down the other band members and talk to them. Unluckily for them, Shizuru is already on the move to complicate things, as he has tracked down the red band member, and is trying to use a Chaos Stone to open up another world. Shion runs in to stop Shizuru, questioning what he's trying to do. Shizuru finds pleasure in seeing humans return to their true nature, forgetting reason and succumbing to their desires. He doesn't do it as an agent of Chaosism, just out of his own free will. On the other hand, Jigen tracks down a Chaos Stone in the hands of the green bandman, but it's in the hand of Rui as he attempts to hypnotize the man. Rui challenges Jigen to come get the stone and prevent the man from being consumed by chaos, transforming and telling Jigen to come at him. Jigen transforms and attacks him, but is unable to defeat Rui. Harma manages to find the blue bandman with Lance's help. Lance believes that Q organized the disbandment of the band in order to split them up for his game. Harma attempts to convince the blue bandman to come reunite with the other members, but the man is dismissive and accepts the fact that they're going their separate ways. Harma struggles to understand why, but the bandman simply tells him that Harma is the type of person who has never cried. He's always been surrounded by the people he loved, and he believes in naive things like eternal friendships, meaning that he would never understand where the man is coming from. It unfortunately rings true, as Harma loses motivation after reflecting on what the man said. Lance doesn't want Harma to give up, but is suddenly taken over by Q, who leaves Harma alone. Back to Shion, he tries to reason with the red bandman who is too angry to see reason. Shion can't comprehend how anger can consume someone so completely, revealing that he's never once gotten angry at someone before, as he always tries to reason with people. Shizuru sees it as Shion being self-absorbed and seeing himself as some type of selfless martyr, and states that while anger can make you lose control, it is ultimately a sign of love. Anger towards someone you care about means that you want them to correct their behavior, but that anger only comes to fruition due to caring about them. He challenges Shion to stop the red bandman from becoming angry, transforming and leading into a battle. Unfortunately, Shion can't win against his senior. Jigen is still struggling against Rui and trying to convince the green bandman that he can't simply give up on the band. Rui sees it as hypocritical nonsense, as belief cannot solve everything. Jigen's beliefs would never make it possible for him to defeat Rui. Furthermore, he sees Jigen as pathetic for chasing after an ideal version of himself in a way that only brings him pain. It's important to know when to give up on something, and Jigen is too hot-headed to see that. Rui delivers a hit strong enough to detransform Jigen and declares Slam Days the victors of the game. Jigen sees Rui's attitude as unbefitting of Kamen Riders, having no real passion or motivations behind his actions. But Rui believes that since he was chosen to be a rider, it's his choice and how he gets to play around with his powers. Justice doesn't matter to him, it's simply a matter of who wins. Back in the Chaos World, the yellow bandman's transformation into a monster is almost complete. Q comes to talk to Yu and Saigo, declaring the game good as over. saying that even if Saigo were to forcibly take the man out of the Chaos World, he would simply wander back in later on. But Saigo doesn't want to give up, starting a fight between him and Q. Predictably, Q is too strong for Saigo. Saigo admits defeat, but still wants to save the man, which Q is unable to understand, as Saigo's idea of what being a rider means are just false teachings of chaosism. When Saigo reveals that he doesn't have any memories, it intrigues Q, as everyone else you have met were implanted with false memories, whereas Saigo simply has nothing, the same way Q overwrote Lance's memories. It's something that they have in common. Q suddenly agrees to let the man go, saying he had no intention of letting him transform into a monster anyways. Shizuru and Rui show up with the other band members in tow, allowing for the band to reunite and naturally set aside their differences. The band members willingly leave the Chaos World on their own, having us question Q if this was his intention all along, or if he's even truly a member of Chaosism, but he doesn't give a clear answer. The members of Slam Days happily walk off into the busy streets of the entertainment district, leaving Yu and Saigo confused. The group of 4 friends meet at the cafe to discuss what happened, expressing disappointment at how they failed at their missions. Ultimately, it acts as a bonding experience for them, as they realize that they failed due to their lack of cooperation. The members of Slam Days don't appear to be friendly with each other, yet were able to work together to concoct their plan. You suddenly get a message from your rider phone from Lance, apologizing for Q's behavior, and giving a tip to visit a lounge in the commercial district called Wisdom. It turns out, it was a place your father used to visit frequently, and there may be information regarding him and his past. Chapter 9. You go to the lounge Wisdom with Leon. Upon entering, the manager Son, who greets you at the door, recognizes Leon. You try to ask for more information about your father, but upon mentioning him, Son becomes dismissive and asks you to leave. Leon happens to have a membership card for the lounge, so Son is unable to deny our entrance. You're left alone with Son, but he refuses to comment on your father's history due to privacy reasons. As an apology for not being able to give you information, he offers a palm reading instead. He eerily senses that you will face a great challenge in the future, leading to you becoming isolated, with the riders and even Leon leaving one day. The two of you are interrupted when a drunk customer starts yelling at the floor manager, Hayate, frustrated over her job. Before she leaves, she mentions something about how a better world is waiting for her out there, hinting that she may have come into contact with a Chaos Stone. But Son tells you to stay out of the business of their customers. You and Leon chase after the woman nonetheless, but it seems that the Wisdom employees also plan to take action. You and Leon end up at a department store where it seems that the lady from earlier was a fashion designer named Utako Miyake, and her exhibit was supposed to show today. You think of asking the store clerk where the designer's home is, but are stopped in your tracks by a man. You realize that he's the man who told you about the Chaos World, who now introduces himself as Joe. Leon is suspicious of Joe, but Joe reassures you that he has no ulterior motives. He does everything out of kindness and a feeling of debt to your father. Joe used to be someone who studied the Chaos Stone and was taken under your father's wing, and thus, Joe wants to see you succeed as an agent. He suspects that Utako Miyake was lured into coming into contact with a Chaos Stone by someone at the lounge, as she only started coming there recently after being invited by someone. He suggests that you go and directly collect information from the Wisdom employees. Hearing this, you go back to the lounge, with Son still acting cold when asked for information, only allowing you to be there due to the membership card. Leon leaves as soon as you enter so that you can talk to the Wisdom employees alone. There's a branching choice here, and I choose to talk to Koki first, who works in the kitchen. You ask Koki what he knows about Miyake, but the only things he has to say is that she was a noisy customer who only ate fish. He doesn't seem to be willing to engage in small talk, and upon being asked if he even cares that she may be in the Chaos World, he simply says that if she becomes a monster, he'll get rid of her. You ask him who he thinks might have invited Miyake, to which he answers Hayate before leaving. You talk to Hayate, who claims that he never met Miyake before she started coming to the lounge. In fact, when she first started coming, she saw him as a kid and wouldn't even request to speak with him. It was only after numerous visits that Miyake started requesting Hayate's company. Hayate also refuses to give up any personal information regarding customers, but tells you that he thinks it was Son who invited Miyake to the lounge. He reveals that suspiciously, Son has never told them how he managed to gain the funds required to open the lounge in the first place. Upon learning this, you request to talk to Son, and get straight to the point about asking him for information. He reveals that yes, he knows Utsuko Miyake, and he knows where she lives, but he wasn't the one who invited her to the lounge. Despite the members of Wisdom knowing each other for many years, they still keep secrets from each other and aren't very close. But he doesn't see it as a bad thing. Rather, it's a way to avoid becoming attached to each other and experiencing pain. Through your questions, though, Son has figured out the true culprit behind everything, Joe. Joe himself enters the lounge and admits it was him, and that it was all a test to see if you were worthy of being your father's successor. Without your father, Wisdom thinks, as a group specializing in intelligence operations, wouldn't exist. Ultimately, they're on your side. Joe explains that he gave Miyake the Chaos Stone in order to study its effects, and that she can be located at a nearby hotel. You contact the trio of roommates from the industrial district to come and help rescue her, as the others are still recovering from their encounter with Slam Days. You enter the Chaos World, met by a talking Utsuko Miyake branded dress that gives the hint that she's at the store where her exhibit is opening. On the way there, you encounter 10 monsters at once, making Matsunosuke, Kyosuke, and Narushi transform to fight them off. They keep coming, and you end up splitting apart due to Kyosuke and Narushi turning it into a competition. You and Matsunosuke run ahead to the store, only to encounter multiple large monsters. Joe suddenly appears, saying he's there to observe the new Kamen riders. From what he can see, he isn't impressed. All riders have the basic qualification of being able to handle the will of chaos, but there is still skill and experience needed. We cut to the old 7 gathered and discussing the need to find a new generation of students for the Rider Academy, due to the 5th generation fleeing. They decide to go forward with selecting a new 6th generation of students in order to combat the riders who turned against chaosism. Back at the mall, Joe reveals that all members of the Rider Academy weren't just able to handle the will of chaos. They've created Chaos World before and were able to perfect it. Chaosism seeks rider candidates who are able to handle immense amounts of chaos without becoming corrupted. Matsunosuke is shocked. If riders are able to create chaos worlds, it means that they aren't free from having evil and distorted wishes. Joe says that it's natural and unavoidable, saying that a rider cannot fight against chaosism alone. Wisdom thinks have a pact together that allows them to become stronger. They share a secret, bound by a contract, and if any of them betray that contract and share that secret to others, the other members will erase the fact that they existed. As long as they are united under their promise, they can fight with unwavering faith and courage. According to Joe, it's impossible for the new riders to fulfill their duties properly due to their lack of knowledge about the world. With Matsunosuke unable to fend off the large monsters, you end up asking Wisdom Thinks to come and help fight as a way to show if their skills are truly superior. Kyosuke and Narushi finally catch up with you at the store, with Joe thanking them for weakening the Chaos World. It turns out that the more damage done to the monsters, the more delayed the process of chaos overtaking the victim becomes. The rest of the Wisdom Thinks members appear and transform, going on to easily defeat all the monsters. The young riders see how inexperienced they are, and aim to become stronger. The Wisdom Thinks members then guide Miyake out of the Chaos World. Meanwhile, at the Takato Enterprises building, Titan promotes Uryu into becoming his right-hand man. Chapter 10. Leon is rushing around the cafe, as it seems that a company from the business district has reserved a cafe for a company after party. Saigo and Haruma enter, asking if they could use the training room in the base as they've been disappointed with themselves after their encounter with Slam Days. You guide them down to the room where they're able to practice virtually simulated battles. Oddly though, it seems that the room is malfunctioning and unable to start the simulations. Upon asking who would be able to repair it, Leon tells you that the company that reserved the private room for the night is the technology company Takato Enterprises. The next day, you and Leon visit the headquarters, with Leon telling you that the Cosmos conglomerate has had a long-held friendship with Takato Enterprises as a major shareholder. You will be meeting with someone who is being considered as the company's next president, that being Titan Takato. Upon seeing him in the lobby though, Titan initially ignores you as he's incredibly busy with meetings and executive duties. That's when Uryu, who is acting as his brother's assistant, recognizes you from the graduation ceremony. Titan apologizes as he didn't know who you were, but wants to help you now that he knows you were the one who helped his little brother escape. You're able to secure a meeting with Titan for 10 p.m. that night, but when the time comes, it seems that he's running late. Uryu keeps you company as you wait, and sincerely expresses thanks for helping him back at the Rider Academy. He admits that ever since he escaped, he doesn't wish to transform anymore. We see a flashback of what happened when Uryu appeared in Nijigao City. He ended up fainting in the middle of the street, waking up in Titan's home. He doesn't recognize who Titan is at all, but is assured that he's finally home with his older brother after disappearing 2 years ago. Titan wasn't even sure that Uryu was alive all this time. Uryu is unsure if he can believe this, but Titan is adamant that this is his life now, and he wants Uryu to work as a Kamen Rider to protect Nijigao City. Titan tells Uryu that he used to be a Rider Academy student, although its official name is actually the Chaos Academy, and upon graduation, he was given a high position within Chaosism and dispatched to the city to act out his mission. Uryu is shocked and accuses Titan of being an active member of Chaosism, but Titan claims that he has broken free of their grasp and now wants to focus on the family business. He wants Uryu to be a Kamen Rider in order to have protection for their company. Uryu will start off as a secretary in order to gain the intellectual skills to run the company, before one day becoming a rider. These conditions are not negotiable, they are demand. But Uryu is adamant that he does not want to transform into a rider. He is traumatized by the loss of control he experienced during the graduation ceremony. Titan isn't happy to hear it, but seemingly accepts it on the condition that Uryu still works for the company. We cut back to the present, where Titan has finally arrived for the meeting. He officially introduces himself and mentions his good relationship with your father. On the topic of the Rider training room needing repairs, Titan says that it is possible to repair it, but that the company is currently going through some turmoil. The Rider base itself is meant to be top secret, meaning that there are few employees that would be trusted with the repairs. So he asks you to wait until things at the company calm down. Their father, the current president, was recently injured, and thus the shareholders have been discussing about removing him from his position. They want to use it as an opportunity to abolish the family-run aspect of the business and nominate a person outside of the family to take over the position. Thus, it has led to an internal conflict where there are supporters of Titan versus supporters of the current vice president. Titan compares running the business as a hierarchy, similar to Chaosism, which makes you question his ties to it. It turns out, Titan was the first ever candidate for an executive position since the foundation of the Chaos Academy. As he puts it, if there is a hierarchy of riders, he is one of the top riders. You ask him for more information about Chaosism due to his inside knowledge, to which he compares it to a pyramid. At the top is the leader, the ruler of Chaosism, who is unknown. Under him are the Old Seven, who acts as executives. The members are chosen from the 7 different districts in Nijigao City: the Educational District, Industrial District, Commercial District, Entertainment District, Corporate District, Downtown District, and Central District. Each member oversees the activities of Chaosism within their area. Under the L7 are graduates of the Chaos Academy who are able to transform into Chaos Riders. They are the ones who go and act out the orders of the L7. Those under them are regular combatants. Anyone who is unable to graduate from the Chaos Academy are assigned to this position. Titan apologizes for being unable to help repair the base at this time, but hopes that this information is valuable. He leaves you with one major piece of advice: never go against one of the 07. We see the 07 discuss their interest in the current conflict going on at Takato Enterprises. It turns out that the vice president, Nakawatari, is a devout believer of chaosism, and his victory in securing the president position would allow chaosism full control over the technological productions of Nijigao City. They even suggest killing off Titan and any other potential heirs in order to end the bloodline, but decide that the best course of action is breaking down Titan's will in order for the shift of power to appear less suspicious. They enact this scheme by having Nakawatari challenge Titan's plan to sell battlesuits to the government, claiming that Nijigao is a perfectly peaceful city and that the project is too risky. Titan doesn't want to back down, as he's concerned for the high amounts of disappearances happening in the city, citing his own brother's disappearance as proof. He offers a challenge that if the deal falls through and ends up losing money for the company, he will step down from his position, which is exactly what the 07 wants. In the car, Uryu expresses anxiety over Titan's decision, but ultimately trusts in it. Titan asks if Uryu has collected the data that was asked for regarding Haruma and Saigo. It turns out, Titan plans to use data from them to further develop the battlesuit project. The car suddenly crashes, with the driver passing out, and as Titan steps out to investigate the scene, he is approached by a follower of chaosism. At the cafe, you ask Leon about Titan, learning that it was Titan's father who built the rider station for your father. Titan's goal with the battlesuit project is to use rider technology to benefit the masses, from police officers to factory workers. It would enable them to work safely at peak performance. The next day, it turns out that a gas leak explosion occurred at the Takato Enterprises factory, causing huge losses and accusations from Vice President Nakawatari that Titan was exploiting the workers. Titan is told that if he wants a chance to set the record straight, he must speak at the emergency press conference. When you and Leon hear about it, you're surprised to see Uryu come into the cafe and ask to speak in private. He tells you that earlier that morning, he was pulled aside by the vice president. We see in a flashback that Nakawatari tried to convince Uryu that Titan was the mastermind behind the explosion, doing it to serve in the name of chaosism. Uryu came to the cafe to see if there was any definitive proof that your father helped Titan break free from brainwashing, as he doesn't want the rumor to be used against Titan during the press conference. Unfortunately, it seems that there isn't any evidence, and thus, Titan faces the press conference alone with the hope that the public can patiently wait until the real culprit is revealed. Titan tells Uryu that he is hereby dismissed from his duties as a secretary, as chaosism is targeting the company and putting him in danger. Only if he becomes a Kamen Rider will he be able to fight back. Titan leaves, only to find a door to the Chaos World in the building lobby, and proceeds to enter it. As expected, Nakawatari is the center of it all, lost in his desires to move up the ranks of chaosism. Right as Titan is getting ready to fight off the monsters appearing before him, Uryu comes in, finally deciding to step up and protect his brother and their company. Titan warns him that it is not a simple task, as being a part of the Takato family means they live their lives for the company. They must be willing to give up all personal desires, and if they fail, they will be banished and have their ability to transform taken away. Despite these warnings, Uryu swears to fight alongside his brother. Titan is pleased, and tells you that in order for him and Uryu to form a contract, you need to lend the power of the pendant. Confused, you go along with it, and the three of you are transported to a blank white chapel, which Titan refers to as a contract room. They swear to fight alongside each other as Tower Emblem, under a contract of control and domination. When the contract is complete, Titan says that their rings now have the ability to evolve as they fight together. The room fades away, and the brothers now face their first fight together as a team. It cuts to Titan giving another speech in front of the media, now naming Nakawatari as the perpetrator. Now that everything has been cleared up and Titan has inherited the company, the battle simulation room has been fixed. On top of this, as Titan is now the active president, He can assume all duties related to the Rider Station and continue developing Kamen Rider technology. You're thankful and offer Uryu your support as an agent, but find out that due to his contract of control with Titan, he is required to act under Titan's orders at all times. In the end, Titan gives his permission as he respects the history between your companies, and wants you to buy the finalized version of the battlesuit when it releases. Uryu gives you the Chaos Stone as further thanks, and everyone goes their separate ways. At the cafe, Leon tells you that he's known the Takato family for a long time, but never knew that Titan had a younger brother. After doing extensive research, it turns out they are cousins, and not biological brothers. Uryu does have an older brother, although he is named Takato Kaigumo. Chapter 11. We start out at the cafe as usual, although today is a special occasion, as it is the anniversary of your father's death. There isn't much to talk about with Leon though, due to your lack of connection to your father. Uryu comes in to talk to you in private. He's been wondering why all of the 5th generation riders have been able to transform into Kamen Riders, rather than Chaos Riders as they were intended to be. He suspects that it's your pendant that changes the nature of their transformation drivers. Titan told him that the powers it has are remnants of your father, as is the crystallization of the previous generation's beliefs in Kamen Riders. One of those powers it has is forming a contract between riders. Contracts were relied on by the previous generation to fight against chaosism, and thus, it'd be wise if you get the other riders under your watch to form one. After Uryu leaves, you talk to Leon again, unable to believe that the concept of contracts was created by your father. Leon advises that you speak to Slam Days and Wisdom Thinks to find out what kind of person your father was, and what the contracts truly symbolize. The two of you meet with the Slam Days members at a small restaurant to talk. You ask how Slam Days formed, and Shizuru tells you that the members entered a contract of freedom. They are free to enjoy their lives however they wish, but they must honor any games or competitions set up by another member. All members must participate. If a member fails to do so, they lose their ability to transform and are imprisoned within a dungeon with no escape, thus taking away their freedom. You ask what the point of forming such a contract would be, with such a harsh penalty, but Shizuru says that it was ultimately your dad's desire for the members to live free lives so that they can grow as people through freedom. They don't fear the consequence, as ultimately, they are able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, with each other's company. You leave and move on to the Wisdom Lounge to talk to the Wisdom Things members. They don't elaborate on much, but tell you that ultimately, you form bonds with them, but also must help them form bonds with each other. Only with a large amount of trust and teamwork can riders hope to take on chaosism. You go back home with Leon, who urges you to help the 5th generation of riders connect with each other, starting with Harma, Saigo, Jigen, and Shion. You bring up the idea to Harma and Saigo first, who seem on board, and decide to call a meeting with the other two to confirm the agreement. Everyone ends up at the park, and Shion agrees after having it explained to him. Jigen, however, refuses, as he is adamant about working alone, and believes that having a contract would hold everyone back. He leaves, putting the rest of the members in a tough spot. The Old Seven are in the midst of a meeting, and it seems that the 6th generation of Chaos Riders have already been chosen. At the cafe, Leon comes to you anxiously with news that Zero has detected nearly 100 cases of Chaos Zone-related information. He cites a similar situation that happened 2 years ago when your father was still alive, where large numbers of people went missing after the 4th generation of riders graduated. He suspects that a new generation of candidates are being targeted, but it would be difficult to deal with the situation as even your father could only help a few victims. You have no choice but to call on the help of all available riders to help keep the city safe. You go to the location of one of the tips, with the industrial district trio following suit. You encounter a local carpenter who tells everyone that his apprentice, Masato Tsuchiya, suddenly stopped showing up to work, leading you to the location of the door that appeared. You enter it to find Tsuchiya building a home all by himself, telling you that he must make the house more livable for his grandfather, who has a bad back. The riders are suddenly swarmed by monsters, causing them to transform and fight. But their lack of cooperation leads to difficulty, and as they struggle, a familiar face appears. Mitis. Mitis uses his powers to evolve the monsters into a more powerful form, telling the riders that they have no chance against them anymore. The members are stubborn and refuse to believe it, despite you telling them to back down, but they suddenly de-transform and are unable to fight. Due to this unexpected problem, everyone runs back out of the Chaos World to avoid facing Midas. No one understands why the transformation was cancelled, but as an agent, you tell them that they lack the determination to evolve and be a strong team. It's about time that they start thinking about what their end goal is, and how to form a contract that honors their shared ideals. It makes them reflect on their shortcomings, with Matsunosuke stepping up and realizing that it is ultimately their differences that make them unable to leave each other. They argue because they care about each other, and ultimately, they fight together with different goals, but also a desire to compete against each other. Fittingly, they decide to form a contract of power. If someone is facing difficulty, the person with more power will come in to save them. The mark of a powerful person is the ability to save those close to you. If a member is unable to fulfill these conditions, their transformation abilities are taken away, and they will personally answer to Matsunosuke's physical punishment. Narushi and Kyosuke agree to the terms, and they finally decide on their official team name, fitting of their personalities. Mad Guy. You act as a witness to the contract, confirming it into existence, forever tying the members to each other and strengthening them. Everyone goes back into the Chaos World with renewed determination, and the superpowered enemies are now easily taken out. Tsuchiya is safely removed from the Chaos World and everyone parts ways. The rest of the riders learn about Mad Guy's new contract. Happy for them, but discouraged by the fact that they are falling behind their peers. In the end, they can only hope that when the time comes, their contract will be powerful and their friendship will continue to strengthen. Chapter 12. You get a call from Harma from inside of a Chaos World. It seems that he has encountered the newly evolved monsters, but is unable to fight them on his own. You tell him that only a contract would be able to help strengthen his powers, but are unable to call for a meeting with everyone at the moment due to his situation. Harma, understanding that you're in a pinch, tells you that he'll figure something out on his own and hangs up. Leon suggests that you call for other riders to come help Harma instead, as his friends are currently split up and fighting separately. We cut to Saigo fighting monsters in a Chaos World, when he suddenly de-transforms. Luckily, Kamen Rider Locke has come to help, this time being Lance, who easily defeats the monster. Saigo asks him why the transformation suddenly cancelled, which Lance describes as a life-sustaining function. The driver reacts to the rider's vital signs, and if it reaches a certain threshold, forces a de-transformation and stops the rider from fighting. Saigo may have felt like he could have fought more, but ultimately, he would be doing his body more harm than good. Lance brings up a surprising proposition. Saigo should join Slam Days. It would help him become stronger, and both Q and Lance have taken a liking to him. After all, they both lack previous memories of their lives before entering the Rider Academy. If he were to join, he would have to enter the Contract of Freedom. Saigo refuses. The focus switches back to Harma, whose transformation also cancels. This time, it is Uryu who swoops in and eliminates the enemies. He tells Harma that it was Titan who gave him and Saigo their apartment. But as of recent events, Titan has been disappointed with Harma's performance. Titan saw Harma and Saigo's potential as riders as an investment and source of data collection, and upon learning this information, it angers Harma, who wants to prove he can become stronger without Titan's help. Shion is already in the middle of sending someone out of the Chaos World with Hayate's help. Hayate initially puts on a friendly front, but quickly drops it when he tells Shion that from the information Wisdom Things have collected, him and his peers seem inferior and unnoteworthy. Even though Hayate is clearly trying to break him down, Shion says that he doesn't care about how other people evaluate him. We then see Kyosuke helping out Jigen, but it's obvious that their two hot-headed natures don't go together. Kyosuke sees Jigen as an egomaniac who can't accept help when he needs it. Kyosuke acknowledges being the same before, but has learned that being number one doesn't matter if you're too miserable and lonely to carry out your responsibilities. But Jigen says he isn't worried about being the best. He wants to be a better person and become mentally strong enough to never let his emotions sway him or get in the way of his goals. Something that Kyosuke doesn't understand, despite how much Jigen looked up to him at one point for his unyielding nature. But Kyosuke warns him that he doesn't truly know what he's up against, and he won't find out until he encounters one of the old 7. All that work that Jigen is doing right now won't matter if he dies. Saigo and Shion meet up after completing their quests, and they go to Saigo's apartment to treat each other's injuries. Saigo tells Shion about how Lance recruited him to join Slam Days, and his reason for refusing being the fact that he doesn't know himself as a person, therefore cannot understand freedom. Shion understands, as he doesn't know which of his memories are true or false. He didn't care about Hayate's criticisms since Shion doesn't know where his skills lie either. The only thing that he knows is that he feels the most like himself when he's with Saigo, Harma, and Jigen. Speaking of the other 2 members, the 2 of them meet up at the end of their missions. Jigen admits that they lack powers due to not having a contract, but is worried about what having one would entail. Through trying to find common ground on what they're fighting for, it seems that Harma and Jigen have very similar goals. Harma doesn't want to see anyone cry, whereas Jigen doesn't want to see anyone get hurt. They both fail to show emotions to others, Harma having never cried, while Jigen has never showed real happiness. But this isn't exclusive to them. Saigo has never once smiled, and Shion has never expressed anger. Their source of bonding is the emotions they're unable to reveal to others. You find yourself venturing out into the educational district, with my choice being the park. There, you find Saigo, who's been thinking deeply about forming a contract. He believes that it's the right path to go on, but asks for advice on the type of contract they should form. You suggest a contract of peace, which seems to put Saigo at ease. The next day, you get a notification of new Chaos Zone activity, to which you dispatch the 4 members to take care of. You all gather at the location, but Harma stops you to say that they've agreed on the idea of forming a contract after hearing your suggestion to Saigo the day before. A contract of peace, honoring their common goal of protecting people. A goal that would bring them peace of mind. They must support each other when someone is hurt or worried, and maintain a peaceful relationship. Breaking the contract results in their rider abilities being taken away, not just for the person who broke the rule, but for everyone. They decide on the name Justice Ride, and with your guidance, the contract is formed. Their powers go stronger, and they face the monsters within the Chaos World with newfound strength. We cut to the next day, where you tell Leon of Justice Ride's new formation. The members themselves come in to thank you for everything. Strangely though, when you bump into Leon after the members have left, Leon apologizes for something, but doesn't elaborate what for. Chapter 13. We start off with a dream sequence from Leon's perspective. It's a memory of his interview for the Cosmos conglomerate. He's being interviewed by a masked man. Although we can see from the pendant around his neck, it is your father who personally ends up hiring Leon. Your father sees potential in Leon and hires him as a secretary, hoping to take him under his wing. Leon wakes up from his dream, wondering if your father is trying to send him some type of message from beyond the grave. Upon running into you, he expresses how he has always fulfilled his job dutifully, yet has never found the secret behind a safe hidden within the office of the cafe. He asks if you have any clue what the 8-digit pin could be, but as you've never had a good relationship with your father, you don't know any more than what Leon does. Leon mentions how your father has had the pendant since before he became a secretary, and the 2 of you question why it seems so unique compared to the other Chaos Stones. It shines a pure white, and instead of a Chaos World, it sends you to the chapel where riders make their contracts. When Leon hears about the existence of the chapel within the stone, he seems to get an idea, trying out a new code once you've left the room. He enters a number denoting the day your father was born and the day of its death, and it finally opens. Within it is another Chaos Stone resembling the pendant. We cut forward in time, where you're struggling to run the cafe alone as it seems that Leon has disappeared. The Justice Ride members come in, and you all agree to go back to the office to find Leon. When you get there, you see the open safe, but no traces of Leon. Saigo suggests trying to contact Leon's rider phone to figure out his location. The location tracking stops in an alleyway near the cafe, where a door to the Chaos World is already waiting. You enter and meet a talking trash can, who tells everyone that they aren't needed, as there's already a Kamen rider fighting monsters at the museum. You see Leon confronting what appears to be Chaos Rider versions of Slam Days, brandishing a Chaos Ring and trying to transform. Despite his efforts, he fails to do so, and is mocked by corrupted versions of Wisdom Thinks, who tell him that he lacks the talent to become a Kamen Rider. You ask Leon why he is fighting them, only to find out that he sees them as leaders of Chaosism, and wishes for a world where he prevents them from becoming Kamen Riders. The members of Justice Ride decide that the only way to snap Leon out of it is to defeat the Chaos Riders, transforming and providing a distraction for you to take Leon and run away. Leon apologizes for not being able to help, and admits that he holds a lot of regrets regarding your father. Your father passed away due to illness, made worse by the amount of both mental and physical stress that being a Rider agent entailed. He fought on the front lines alongside his Riders, trying to find the Chaos Stones that sealed away the memories of the Chaosism leaders. Leon believes that if he had been more conscious about your father's struggles, early treatment would have prevented his death, and thus he feels directly responsible for it. In a way to make up for his failures, he wished to become a Kamen Rider and inherit the powers that your father passed on. But even after creating his own Chaos World, he couldn't see his dream fulfilled. Meanwhile, the members of the Ul-7 detect the unusually strong Chaos Stone readings, deciding to send someone directly to collect it. The Justice Ride members are struggling in the background, finding the fake Chaos Riders a challenge to fight against. You and Leon come back to the museum as Leon realizes he can contribute to the fight against Chaosism even without being a Kamen Rider. But you find yourself in for a rude awakening as a member of the Ul-7, Volut, greets everyone. Volut is hell-bent on provoking Leon, disrespecting your father and the previous generation of Riders, and Leon unfortunately is unable to listen to it. Leon's emotions take over, transforming into a distorted version of a Kamen Rider who cannot recognize you and only communicates through animalistic growls. Volut declares that Leon Ijo is now gone, and has evolved into a new form before leaving. You panic at the idea that Leon is past the point of no return, as well as the fact that everyone may be stuck within the Chaos World now. Those fears are confirmed when the group reaches the door, only to see it flickering in and out of existence. Luckily, you and the Justice Ride members are able to return to the real world just in time before the door closes, albeit leaving Leon in the process. An announcement comes in through the news reporting large numbers of young men disappearing, signaling the arrival of the 6th generation of Chaos Riders. Back at the cafe, you and the members of Justice Ride are trying to understand everything that's happening. Saigo suspects that Leon, in his newly monstrous form, is the one kidnapping men for Chaosism to train due to the timing. Despite how grim the situation is looking, everyone agrees to do their best and fight with everything they have. Chapter 14. You and the boys go to the museum, hoping that if you find the mask that initially brought you to the world of the Rider Academy, you can use it to go back and find Leon. You eventually find the room as well as the mask, and your pendant glows in response to it, opening the door to the Chaos World. Everyone ends up in the woods outside of the academy where you find Leon as well as Volut. You confront Volut, who says that Leon is fulfilling his duty by bringing fear to the citizens of Nichigao City, making them vulnerable targets to the will of chaos. Leon attacks the members of Justice Ride, and you suddenly find yourself alone as the attacks appear to have teleported them to a different location, and the door that you entered from is gone. It seems that you are Leon's next target, but you suddenly get a call from Matsunosuke. You frantically tell him your current location and run away from Leon, who oddly enough doesn't seem to chase after you. The Ul-7 observe what is happening and seem ready to jump onto the opportunity to take out the Riders separately. Mad Guy groups up and are ready to make their way to the museum, but are stopped in their tracks by Midas. He presents them a Chaos Stone, one directly connected to the Chaos World that you are in. He transforms into his evolved form, daring the Mad Guy members to follow him into the world to fight against him, to which the members agree. The scene changes to Takato Enterprises, where Uryu requests permission by Titan to help you out as the situation seems dire. Titan isn't interested, saying that it has nothing to do with the company's interests and that Uryu cannot dare to go against his orders. But Uryu is able to convince him by claiming it's a chance to collect new battle data from Harma and Saigo due to their now evolved abilities. Titan decides to go with Uryu as well, As it turns out, an employee from the company went missing a month prior, thus making it a responsibility for him to investigate the matter. As they're about to enter their car, Domina stops them. We learn that Domina was Titan's supervisor when he was still on the side of Chaosism. Domina transforms and enters the Chaos World, with the Tower Emblem siblings following after. The Slam Days members are currently investigating posts on social media, weeding out fake information when all of a sudden they get a message from Rebel, challenging them to a game. He wants them to answer the questions to a quiz, and if they answer correctly, they will receive a stone. He gives them an image of where the stone is located, asking them to go there and find it themselves. Lance easily deduces its location within a coin locker, but Rebel takes it just as quickly as they find it. He transforms and enters the Chaos World, with Slam Days doing the same. Wisdom Things are getting numerous reports from their customers of their loved ones going missing, prompting them to investigate. On the street, they run into Taurus, who invites them back into the world of their former school, to which they accept in order to bring happiness to the women of Nijigao. We finally find out where the Justice Ride members are, and it appears that Leon's attack transported them to a neighborhood within the alternate city. Harma and Jigen recognize their homes, making them sentimental for memories that never truly existed. PSU suddenly appears, expressing his disappointment in how they didn't fulfill their potentials of becoming Chaos Riders. He transforms, with Justice Ride doing the same, but as expected, they are unable to defeat him. PSU is sad that their growth doesn't reach his expectations, but still expresses a desire to watch their development. He summons a horde of large monsters as he makes his exit. Back in the woods, you realize that you've become lost in your pursuit of finding where the Justice Ride members are. There's suddenly a series of explosions with large amounts of smoke coming out of the city, visible from the horizon. Volo appears, claiming that the explosions are proof that the 07 have won over all of your dispatched riders. You find it hard to believe that everyone was defeated, as well as Volut's claims that everything you've accomplished is meaningless. Volut is ready to attack you, but your pendant starts glowing, abruptly shifting you into the Whitechapel. You see a mirage of your father, who says that at one point in history, only one Kamen Rider existed. That Kamen Rider had to bear the burden of protecting the world all by himself, and eventually died in the process. He passed his will onto future generations with an internal contract that birthed multiple riders. Now that burden is dispersed between multiple generations of riders with intertwined fates. As long as you have the strength to believe in them, the future can be protected. You pass out, waking up to the Justice Ride members who have finally found you. Volo is gone, making you believe that your father saved you through the activation of the pendant. Everyone recollects their thoughts and moves on to find Leon. At the academy, the indoctrination of the 6th generation students is underway, and Leon is being used as a target for the students to practice their combat skills. You and Justice Ride step in, with the members transforming and fighting off Leon. As this is happening, the rest of the rider groups are dutifully fighting against the 07. Justice Ride fight with all of their strength, and are able to defeat Leon. You beg your father to lend his power and cure Leon, and the pendant starts glowing erratically. The light becomes blinding, and Saigo takes the opportunity to land one last blow to Leon, breaking his monstrous form and returning him to normal. The Justice Ride members turn their attention to the new students, telling them that the academy is a lie and that they all must run away. You hope that the stone is able to teleport everyone out of the Chaos World as it did before, but it doesn't respond, appearing as if it used too much power in the process of curing Leon. Shockingly, you hear a strange noise from the sky that announces the arrival of the Divine Mask itself, which challenges you to change your destiny before going on to shatter the entire world. You wake up in the real world, with all of the 6th generation students safe and able to go back to their normal lives. Leon comes to his senses, not remembering anything past his discovery of the stone within the safe. A few days later, you find yourself throwing a party with all of the riders to celebrate your victory over Chaosism, as well as Leon's discharge from the hospital. It's the first time everyone is gathered all in one place on good terms, some getting along more than others. Justice Ride announced that they have opened a Kamen Rider shop, acting as a sort of community service force. Customers send in a request, and the members will arrive within 30 minutes to help with their problem. The other riders are impressed by their drive, and express their now amicable feelings towards each other before leaving the party. Leon thanks you for doing such a good job as an agent and arranging the party. The story seemingly ends, but we get a post-credit scene following what happened before the time skip into the party, where it turns out you and Leon went back to the museum to investigate the mask, only to see that it has been removed, and you make a connection to something that you saw in the alternate version of the room within the Chaos Academy. The mask on the mannequins appeared inconspicuous at the time, but we realize now that the masks were the faces of the 5th generation students. You realize that the fragmented Chaos Stones of those masks may be the ones that contain their memories. Leon tells you that the previous generation attempted to collect all of the Chaos Stones to regain their memories, but failed to do so. You decide that you may be able to help the riders regain their true selves if you collect all of the stones, marking a goal for the future. And finally, the story ends for real. So, what are my thoughts as someone who's been a longtime fan of Kamen Rider as well as part of the target demographic? Is this game a good addition to the Kamen Rider legacy? I would honestly say it's decent. I wouldn't write this off even if you're not a fan of how different it is from the main show. If we look at the gameplay aspect, there are a number of issues that I can comment on as someone who's been playing since launch. It was a fairly rocky release, with a lot of crashing and bugs that I personally experienced. But the team has been working on it with frequent maintenance sessions and updates, even extending the time of events to make up for it. As of now, the game runs much better than it did before. As a racing sim, it's fine. It's a very hit or miss genre, but I imagine people who love team building aspects will enjoy this game. The gameplay itself leaves a lot to be desired, but as with many racing sim games, you're in it for the story and characters themselves and not the gameplay. Speaking of the story and characters, I'm honestly impressed with what Yuya Takahashi has done with the story so far. Of course, we need to judge it as its own thing. As its own thing, it works, and if it were taken and used as the basis for an actual season of Kamen Rider, I could still see it working. It's also important to note, I did have to condense the story down a lot for the earlier section, so there are a lot more character building moments sprinkled in between than you'd think. But due to the fact that it's a live service gacha game, there's much more time and spacing allowed for those character arcs to build up. Not everything has to be resolved within the first arc of the story or within the same chapter that an issue is introduced. What initially worried me when the game was first announced was if they could handle such a large cast. 16 main writers is a lot to juggle, and what I hate the most is characters with potential who get shafted by writing. But Kamens is doing a pretty good job at it so far. You get entire chapters dedicated to the main characters within the story, and the writers who haven't gotten their focus yet all have some type of setup for their character arcs already established. By the end of the story, there were surprisingly a lot of characters who left an impression on me, and many who had me wondering just what their deal is. If I had any major complaints of the story, it would be the exposition dumping that happens at times. But all things considered, I think this story has potential with where it's currently at. I feel like Yuya Takahashi has a track record already with writing that feels very anime adjacent, so letting him write for an anime-styled game works out quite well. Overall, the world is interesting, the characters are decently fleshed out, and I honestly quite like the decision to make the player character have a lot of characterization. Usually with these games, the main character is a blank self-insert, but the main character in Kamens genuinely feels like their own person. They have a lot of importance, a backstory, and a genuine relationship with everyone. Leon as well. I was expecting him to just be a side character, but he gets just as much screen time as everyone else. It kinda just proves that this game isn't pure fan service. Not denying that it is, but there's a big difference between fan service with depth and mindless fan service. And clearly they went with the first route, and it shows that they put a lot of care into making this game, which is honestly refreshing when it comes to this franchise. Even if this game in particular isn't quite your style, I think it's a good testament that Toei is now willing to try branching out into new projects, which really only benefits us as Kamen Rider fans because it means more content. Overall, this game gets 3.5 Hopper 1s out of 5. If you made it this far, thank you for watching until the end. And if you want more tokusatsu related content, please feel free to subscribe or look at my TikTok page. I've been posting Kamen Rider related content on my TikTok for around half a year now, and this is my first YouTube video of many. I'm also happy to announce that I'm officially now an influencer under YesStyle. What is YesStyle? Well, it's one of the top leading commerce websites for Asian fashion and beauty-related items. If you want to look dripped out like your favorite Kamen Rider characters, consider buying something with my coupon code MANGO24 at checkout. Thank you for watching.